Hi there, this is Josh, and today I'm here with a list of the 10 best books I read in 2015. You may not notice, but I happened to get a tripod for Christmas, and this is the first time I'm using it, which is quite something. I'm really liking it this far. Before that, I had some small tripod-looking device that I had to put up on a stool, which got a little bit challenging. But back to the books. This was a really good year for reading. So much so, the lowest star rating I gave on Goodreads was a 3. There were some that I thought were going to be worse, but they ended up redeeming themselves. The 10 here, 3 of them are 4.5 out of 5 or 9 out of 10, and 7 of them are 5-star or perfect 10 out of 10. Let's get started. Number 10 is Heroes by Robert Cormier. I'm really happy to be including one of his novels on this list because I feel that he is an underrated young adult author who tells it like it is. His writing is very honest. The protagonists usually do not win, but in many cases, when we're going through our teenage struggles, we're not going to win every battle. In this case, Francis Cassavant is returning home from war after obtaining an injury where he lost most of his face, and he's looking to kill Larry LaSalle, who was a mentor he had while he was in high school. When you first pick that up, you're questioning why would he do such a thing, but as you read on, you realize that Larry LaSalle is not the person that he thought he was, and he's a pretty dirty, self-serving individual. I'm not going to give too much away, but Cormier definitely redeems himself the way that he did in the 3 novels that I've read prior, The Chocolate War, I Am the Cheese, and Rag and the Bone Shop. Number 9 is the main novel that I read in order to complete my senior thesis at college, and that is The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. You can see with all of these sticky notes that I did make my way through this, but the thing I like about The Things They Carried is that it really does reflect the idea that you have to be a part of the war in order to really feel what is going on, and this has much more to do with that emotion than it does about the statistics or the tactical decisions. It's the common individual and the struggles that they had to go through, and how to tell a true war story and Lives of the Dead are the 2 sections that really caught my interest the most. They were really heartfelt and just tragic, and that's exactly what war is. And number 8 on the list is George Orwell's Keep the Aspidistra Flying, which is pretty much a testament of a young man going to war against money and how it's just about impossible to do so, especially if you really do not have much money to begin with. Gordon Comstock left a job as a copywriter because he was not very fond of the capitalist motion, but at the same time he couldn't identify as either a socialist or a communist. He just was somebody that did not want to be held down by money. but he also is catering to the emotions of those who care for him. His friend Ravelston, his girlfriend Rosemary, his sister Julia, who really does not... Julia you don't see as much of, but Rosemary, she's very loyal, always by his side. But this was quite an insightful read, and along with everything else that I'm discussing here, I have a top 10 list on my blog that I'm going to share in the description box. But if you've read Animal Farm in 1984, you should definitely check out the lesser-known George Orwell pieces, and especially Keep the Istra Flying. Number 7 is a debut from Shakespeare. I've never included Shakespeare in my top 10. None of them really spoke to me that heavily. But Macbeth has made it onto the top 10 list at number 7. And the reason why is because I feel that Macbeth is something that is quite true about hunger for power. The females in Shakespeare's works were not necessarily notable for being dominant, aside from maybe Volumnia from Coriolanus. Most of them were meek and were the only thing going through their mind was having their romantic desires tended to by a male figure, Juliet, Ophelia. But in Macbeth, it's much different, it's clever, it's humorous in that dry kind of way. And this is the collection that I highly recommend. Number 6 is something that I reviewed on this channel, and it's from this year's Nobel Prize in Literature winner, Svetlana Alexievich's Voices from Chernobyl, which I'll leave a link down below to that review that I did on this channel. I like this one a lot because it gave a voice to those affected by such a tragic nuclear disaster. And it also reflected on Belarusian culture, and also the fact that these people, how heavily it affected them. And it didn't just talk about the direct deaths. It also talked about what life was like, physics, price of salami, and just all of these other things that had to do with the environment following the nuclear disaster in Chernobyl in 1986. And Alexievich just did an excellent job capturing the emotion, and even including the breaking down of those that she was interviewing. Making mention of that because that's what the reader should be thinking. Number 5 is Benjamin Franklin's Wit and Wisdom from Poor Richard's Almanac. This is the Dover Thrift Edition. This is collected proverbs that were featured in his almanac. And they were supposed to be light-hearted sections, kind of like newspaper comics. And a lot of these were quite clever. My absolute favorite proverb of his is, content can make a poor man rich, while discontent can make a rich man poor. I mentioned that in the Wit and Wisdom episode of our show, and how it's certainly true, the fact that if you're not if you need to keep spending money in order to satisfy yourself, you're only going to hurt yourself even more. It's delayed gratification, and the ability to separate your needs and wants is what allows you to move forward and eventually obtain those desires. Number 4 on this list is Thomas Jefferson, The Art of Power by Jon Meacham. Thomas Jefferson, I felt, was quite a remarkable man, third president of the United States, signer of the Declaration of Independence, and the great American Renaissance man. He really did a lot to shape American culture. But Meacham also does an excellent job telling it like it is. He doesn't flatter Jefferson, nor does he bash him. He uses top quality research in order to come up with the best possible conclusion that could be made about Thomas Jefferson, and he just did an outstanding job. This is definitely something you should examine if you're looking for a biography of Jefferson. Number 3 on this list is somebody who I was rooting for to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. Hopefully he has his opportunity to do so. And that is Ko-Un and his collection, This Side of Time. It includes poems from 3 of his previous collections, but he's just remarkable. With most of his poems are a few stanzas at most. Most of them are just one stanza. Some of them are only a few sentences. My favorite poem of Ko-Un's, or the one that sticks out the most to me, is "The autumn leaves fall dancing. I'll dance my way out too when it's time to leave this world." Just quite a merciful way from such a merciful man. He was he was imprisoned for his activism that was deemed to be treasonous, but he has since been forgiven and has really gone on to use a bit of a Buddhist influence in order to convey his message. But either way, it doesn't really, it's very secular, I would say. And it's just brilliant. I think that anyone is going to enjoy the poetry of Ko-Un. Number 2 on this list is The Human Comedy by William Saroyan. I was introduced to Saroyan in middle school. I had read some of his short stories, and The Telegram was one that really stuck out for its poignancy. It had to do with a messenger delivering a message to a mother telling her that her son died in war. And it turns out that it's a part of something much bigger and about the town of Ithaca in California, and how people continue to live their lives while World War II is going on, and how different soldiers, how the soldiers are away putting their lives on the line, and the comedic part of it is life has to go on, and life continues to go on, even though something tragic is going on, and in the back of their minds there is the sense of pain. And Saroyan just does an excellent job capturing this emotion and how we have to move on, and that there are people, primarily the youth, that either just continue to live life the way that they would with or without a war taking place, and while they become older, they begin to understand a bit more, even though their life is not necessarily focused on the events. Number one on my list is perhaps a great American classic. Some may deem it to be a modern classic, but I know that time is going to make it a classic with at least 3 lines beneath it. And that is East of Eden by Jon Steinbeck. I began reading The Grapes of Wrath. I put it down, but I intend to get back to it. East of Eden is just remarkable, especially how it takes its inspiration from the book of Genesis and plants it into a modern-day story about sibling rivalry between Charles and Adam, and then Adam's sons, Cal and Aaron. And then perhaps 2 of the most supporting characters in Lee, who brings everyone together as Adam's servant, and Kathy, who tries to tear everybody apart because she has her own interests and has that manipulative, angry streak about her. And the fact that she gave birth to the 2 sons and then just walked away. It's just something so remarkable, and it's definitely garnered my interest to read the book of Genesis, which is the first in it is the first part of the Holy Bible. And this is, East of Eden is just, I can definitely tell why this is Steinbeck's magnum opus. Larry actually prefers The Grapes of Wrath and Cannery Row, but Kelsey, this is Kelsey's all-time favorite novel. So on this one, I tend to lean toward Kelsey's direction, but I do need to read The Grapes of Wrath as well. Alrighty. Here is my top 10 for 2015. And I really hope that 2016 is just as great of a reading year, if not better. Thank you for tuning in. I thank you for watching, continuing to watch our content. And I hope you all have a happy, healthy, and safe New Year. And for now, and as always, keep reading.